We're a civil rights advocacy group protecting the civil rights of Muslims in America, but it's not limited to Muslims in America, it's protecting everybody's civil rights.
Part think tank, part law firm, part advocacy organization. It's a mixed bag, we wear a lot of hats.
We do suffer from a lot of Islamophobia in Florida, whether it's politicians saying, Islam is the enemy, Islam is the problem, Muslims are the enemy.
We are against something that is a totalitarian, theocratic, political ideology, and it is called Islam.
Or it's the FBI wrongfully harassing and targeting law-abiding citizens and members of the Muslim community. Our office is known to be really at the forefront of pushing back against the Islamophobia industry.
No other Muslim organization in Florida is quoted more and videoed more than representatives from CAIR Florida.
The Council on American Islamic Relations also was there and also weighed in. Listen.
Whatever the situation is that has to do with a Muslim or a Muslim institution or an Islamic center, CAIR is always the first call.
It was quite interesting. The leader with the Volusia County Republican Party, as well as a leader with a Muslim advocacy group, actually got into a heated debate out here. You can see the group of protesters here behind me right now.
And it's important that the broader community see CAIR and CAIR Florida and representatives from CAIR Florida that purport and teach a much different, much more American angle.
Parents are upset over a school textbook that dedicates an entire chapter to Islam and 0 chapters to any other religions.
However, Christianity is infused throughout the books.
The more we understand about diverse cultures and cultures that may not be of a majority in the United States, the better off we will be as citizens of this country in the future.
America is the Christian Judeo country founded by Christians and Jews and even some atheists, but not by Muslims.
The students are standing up against prejudice and intolerance, and they're standing up against censorship. They want to learn, they want to get education, and it's our belief that when we learn about each other, then we can stop fearing and hating each other.
I am protesting Islam because Islam is a lie.
I really feel these people here don't understand that they just have a hatred towards a certain group of people and are taking this textbook as a way to as an outlet for their hate.
Muslim extremists and anti-Muslim extremists often have a lot in common. They want to promote division, hatred, and intolerance, and they want to promote the narrative that America and Islam are incompatible when we know that's completely false.
It's very important for people to understand that culture and religion are 2 different things, and so a lot of time the culture and religion get misrepresented, and those misconceptions and misrepresentations lead to the stereotyping of Muslim people.
The Muslim community is facing some extreme difficulties, especially after 9/11.
Even though they killed 3,000 people on that fateful day, they will continue invading our country.
They really hijacked not just planes that day, but the whole faith.
The awareness of Islam and Muslims has come into play since after 9/11, and people think they just came here from somewhere. They don't really belong in this country. They're all immigrants.
The 24-hour media cycle, they have to create news all the time, and what is more captivating than something that is the continuation of something as spectacular as 9/11?
I mean, if you're listening to the news, all you hear is, Muslims blow this up, Muslims did this.
Unfortunately, the people who scream loudest are the people who are heard. And so without screaming, we're trying to be heard also.
Our message is one that goes against extremists, Muslim extremists and anti-Muslim extremists, who are both promoting this idea that you can't be a good American and a good Muslim.
There are media outlets like Fox News that have a very malicious agenda when they talk about Muslims. They never bring in a voice that is educated and can teach people about Islam, or somebody that doesn't fit the profile of a stereotypical Muslim, South Asian or Arab. They'll never have white Muslims on the TV because that kills the stereotype. They asked me one time to go. I actually went to the studio, but they didn't play it. And I knew exactly why they didn't play it. Bridget Gabriel, you ever heard of her?
Islam is a religion of submission where all other non-Muslims must submit to Islam or be killed.
So is that their agenda?
That is their agenda.
I said, we need somebody to go debate her. I said, let's do it. When they saw me, this dude's white. You know what I mean? So they don't want to, yeah. But they do that for a reason. They do that for a reason because they're like, hold on, because if people see that, they're like, hold on, this guy's white.
As sad as it is, even though we are citizens of this country, we're born here, and we may have been here for hundreds of years, there is racism in this country and every part of the world. There is discrimination everywhere, and CAIR is there to defend those rights, and you need an organization such as it because there is no other organization out there that defends the civil rights of Muslims in America.
As soon as CAIR heard that John Jameson called all Islam radical, they got a description of his job as a manager of public information.
Another thing that raised our eyebrows, he issues counseling forms, disciplinary actions.
CAIR's Nizar Hamzi is concerned that Jameson is a supervisor.
Feelings he has about Islam and about Muslims will manifest into his everyday work. If he happens to have Muslims that work for him or he deals with Muslims, he won't be able to hide it.
Hamzi says they're hiring a private investigator and filing their own Freedom of Information request to look at all of his correspondence.
Tampa police search for a gunman accused of a hate crime. The man allegedly asked the man if he's from the Middle East or Muslim before cursing at the couple and shooting them with a pellet gun.
Sends a very clear message that we really need to stop the hateful rhetoric that's leading people to do very disgusting acts of violence against people who they perceive to be of a different faith.
The Council on American Islamic Relations is offering a $1,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
CAIR released a statement this afternoon asking the FBI to get involved in this case. They say 2012 featured some especially violent hate crimes, including the mass shooting at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin, and just last week, the death of a man who was pushed into the path of a New York City subway.
You know, CAIR Florida is a tremendous investment for the Muslim community. Just this past year, we've generated millions and millions of dollars worth of positive media coverage and got really national media to cover issues that are very important to our civil rights, not just as Muslims, but as Americans as well.
The Council on American Islamic Relations held a press conference in Tampa, Florida this morning to discuss the untimely death of Ibrahim Todashev.
One of the most tragic cases that we've had to work on this year was the shooting of an unarmed Florida Muslim who was shot over 7 times by an FBI agent in his own home after 4 or 5 hours of questioning.
Well, we're calling for an independent investigation because this is a system of checks and balances. I mean, the bottom line is that a man who was not convicted or even charged with any crime formally was shot and killed.
Some said he was armed with a knife. Other reports suggested it was a broomstick, and some even said that the young man was not armed at all. We know, however, that he had serious knee surgery in the days leading up to his death and was barely able to move with crutches even.
And there's never justification for lashing out law enforcement. That being said, we always want to make sure our law enforcement officers remain safe and that they also abide by the highest standards of the law.
And we now know the suspect, Ibrahim Todashev, was not holding a weapon when he was shot.
Just shot. What else do you call that besides depressing and unbelievable? So straight out of a sci-fi drama film.
After the 4th hour, they asked his friend to leave, and then they shot him 7 times. It started here, he's falling down, bam, 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 the top of his head.
The only inquiry into what happened, into what led to that person being shot and killed by an FBI agent, the only entity to investigate what happened was the FBI itself. And surprise, the FBI has found for the last 2 decades that every single time one of its agents shot and killed somebody, it was a justified shooting.
Our camera was rolling as Abdul Baki Todashev visited with the Council on American Islamic Relations today here in Tampa.
If anything, what happened, unfortunately, with his son taught a very important reminder for all of us that you should never meet with law enforcement without an attorney present.
CAIR has faith in the Justice Department, but wants a second set of eyes.
And it's about, answering the questions that this father has why his son was killed.
We've really uncovered a very, very disturbing pattern where apparently the FBI seems to be going through the phone book and calling law-abiding American Muslims for questioning. And it hasn't just been questioning.
We've confirmed that they've threatened Ibrahim Todashev's friends, that they have the option of becoming informants and spying on places of worship, spying on Middle Eastern and Muslim restaurants, or being thrown in jail and having their green cards taken away. This is blackmail. This is illegal. It's not even, it's beyond blackmail because they're threatening them without cause.
The FBI uses a lot of informants to entrap people. They've actually grown to what is kind of described as like a domestic CIA.
Our office has done a lot of work to expose this FBI entrapment program where they've paid over 15,000 people, many of whom to spy on law-abiding American Muslims and to brainwash and even try to radicalize youth to justify the billions of dollars being spent on counterterrorism in this country.
Infiltrating mosques, getting to know people, finding out who's got secrets, who they can leverage, and then they usually try to either squeeze information, either more informants, or try to find people who are marginal and are troubled, you know, and can entrap them in different plots.
And really, we believe these policies actually don't make us any safer and don't make us any more secure, and that's why we're trying to stop that kind of profiling, stop that unjust harassment of the Muslim community.
I think it's important that organizations like CAIR exist because the reality of the Muslim community is very different than what a lot of people think. They're being systematically discriminated against.
In Florida, there's been over 20 anti-Muslim law enforcement trainings given by anti-Muslim bigots within the past couple of years. And these bigots have no qualifications or understanding of Islam or the Middle East or anything remotely similar to what they're talking about, and yet they're training our cops to fear and hate Muslims.
Sam Karoba was an issue we discovered mid-last year, actually last summer. I mean, his criteria for spotting a terrorist was pretty much Hassan Shibli. If you had to describe Hassan Shibli, what he looked like, that's the description this man was given to officers on how to. It is just absolutely ridiculous. And they all adhere to his training, and we know that his training was effective in the way they wanted to because of the arrests we're seeing. So now we have 5 people in our general Tampa Bay that we know of who were arrested because they were Muslim. Because they've hit a white guy had done it, and it mattered.
And because we expose this kind of anti-Muslim training, since we expose that there has, that kind of training has not been tolerated by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and we're hoping that by exposing this sort of un-American training, we can put an end to it. Certainly people have a right to spew their hatred, but that doesn't mean it's the responsible thing to do, especially within the law enforcement setting.
If someone's discriminated at work, if someone's discriminated or profiled by law enforcement, if somebody is harassed by a teacher in college or high school, CAIR is the organization that will stand up and protect your civil rights and make sure that if you have legal remedies that you're given those options to pursue them.
With the amount of cases and the type of issues that come in here, we're not enough. And there are so many people inside the Islamic community, outside the Islamic community who deal with discrimination every single day. The work that we do just in advising of rights, just in helping you ghostwrite letters, telling you who to call, how to call them, that takes up, I'd say, 80% of our time because attorneys firms outside of a civil rights organization don't take the time to do that because they're profit oriented, and the reality of that economic system is that doesn't work.
We are also in need of support from our community, and not just financial support. We're in need of support as people volunteering their time, people volunteering their resources, and having them readily available to the community through CAIR office, especially in the education matters, professional services as computer experts or paralegals, all those components that our community needs. CAIR serves as a vehicle to bring them together and put them readily available.
Sometimes it's hard to stand alone. CAIR often is standing alone because of the unpopular stance that we have to take on things. But it's important that the community knows that we are the organization that does that and that we need the community support. We can't do it alone.
Our community is so new. Even though Muslims have been part of the American fabric since the 1800s, a lot of people don't really know what Islam is.
Whenever a new minority comes to play a role in our society, they face difficulties. It happened to the first Irish who came to America, and they were Catholics, and most of Americans were Protestants. It happened in the past to the Jewish communities when they arrived the country. They needed to really build up their space, basically claiming the rights that are constitutionally protected. So that is what we're doing for the Muslim community. It's a young community in America, and we're educating and protecting their rights, their civil rights, so that people learn how to live with fellow Muslims contributing to their society, and also learn not to discriminate against Muslims because we're a new minority in the bloc.
We have so much in common with everybody else. You know, that it's not us and them. We're all the same. We're all one humanity, and you know, we have a lot of things that we can share.
One thing that I really love about working here at CAIR Florida is that I'm in the position where I can put together events and outreach into the community and educate people about Islam and Muslims. What I find is that a lot of the stereotypes that people have stem from the fact that they've never really met or interacted with a Muslim person. And so by being able to put on these events, we foster an area where people can come together, and by learning more about Islam and Muslims, they're able to shatter these stereotypes and realize these people aren't as different as I am. Sure, we all have different faiths, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to come together and love one another.
And one of the unique roles CAIR's been able to play is be an ambassador to the Muslim world about the great freedom and liberty that America represents. And I think a great example of that was when some crazy person who calls himself a pastor tried to burn the Quran. CAIR worked with members of the Christian community to do interfaith dialogues. And we actually had more people come to a church in Mulberry to learn about Islam and learn about the Quran than those that came to want to burn it or attack it the following day. And I think it's our duty to show that the people who stand for interfaith tolerance and understanding make up the majority of Americans, and that's what America's about. It's not about these crazies and these extremists.
This way they can stand shoulder to shoulder with us and say, yes, we know who these people are, and this is what they really, you know, this is what they stand for, and we know for a fact this is what this person is, and they know the facts from the fiction, and they understand what stereotyping is and what reality is.
We do book tours, author meet and greets. We also do movie screenings. We do Know Your Rights sessions for local communities, college students, high schools.
This week alone, we've been to over 5-6 interfaith seminars and dialogues where hundreds of people attended to really break down the stereotypes and the misconceptions about the Muslim community, which unfortunately often lead to division and hatred.
We as Americans, we're not in this tiny little bubble. You know, we are a part of a wider community, and we as Muslims need to go out there and show, you know, people what Islam is all about.
The reality is that ignorance often leads to misunderstanding. The misunderstanding leads to fear. The fear leads to hatred, which ultimately results in discrimination and even violence. So we at CAIR, we try to break that cycle by being proactive, reaching out to our neighbors of different faiths and saying, look, yes, we may not agree on everything, but let's agree to work together on what we do agree on, which is building a society that stands for justice and tolerance and diversity, a society where children of people of all different faiths can grow up without being afraid to practice their own religious identity.
A common characteristic of those who work in CAIR is a spirit to serve, a genuine spirit to serve.
Most people that work for nonprofits know it's not a money-making, or I'm not going to get rich off of working for CAIR. Not financially, I'm getting rich from within. It feels good. I get a lot of satisfaction because that's the need to help people runs in my veins. We have a great CAIR team. Everybody gets along. We're a big family, and it's just awesome. I love it.
It's a non-profit organization where people are really living as a non-profit organization. It's not a front where people are making big salaries or having extra nice accommodations. We're really doing what a non-profit does, is streaming our expenses, people giving a lot of their time for very minimum material retribution.
It's a lot of extra unpaid work that we do. It's a lot of volunteering, a lot of extra hours, but I do it with pleasure.
I'd like to thank CAIR for giving me the opportunity of being an immigration attorney, which has been a dream of mine for a long time. It's an amazing opportunity to help people from war-torn countries like Syria who have faced unbelievable persecution and who have seen family members killed abroad, to help them gain asylum here in the United States to try to give them a better life.
CAIR has given me the opportunity to live the dream, if you will, to help people achieve what they wanted out of the United States, to achieve that ultimate freedom, to feel free of oppression and live your life and be able to succeed.
So our goal is to work for a day when CAIR is no longer needed, when people are no longer discriminated against, harassed, bullied, or attacked simply because of their religious identity or their ethnic origin or their appearance.
You know, the fact that I've seen individuals change their minds about a religion, about a group of people, means that there's hope. It may take forever, but there's hope, and I'm going to be here as long as that's needed.
One of my daughters wants to be a psychologist. Another one of my daughters wants to be a prosecutor. In this environment, with so many cases of discrimination, this is not the America that I wanted my kids to grow up in, and it's not the America that I grew up in. Even this is different than when I grew up. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. This is completely different now. Our children are facing much harder times than we did growing up. Muslims are trying to be part of society, trying to integrate, trying to be part of the system. And there are those that don't like that don't want any Muslim to have anything to do with anything that they do or any part of their government, right? It's unfortunate we have people like that all over the place and all over Florida. So I do this because I want my children to have a good future and to be able to apply for a job and not be judged because they're wearing a hijab or because they're Muslim, but off the work they do, you know, how they prepare their education, how they prepared for the interview, if they're qualified for the position. And that's the reason why I push so hard, because I look on my desk every day and I see the pictures of my daughters. That's an old picture. And I want to make sure they have a good future where they don't have to call me and say, Dad, I was discriminated against. I didn't get the job because they said they don't allow people that wear hijab work here.
You know, America is one of the best places to grow up as a Muslim. And it's our duty to stand up, appreciate that freedom, and protect that freedom for ourselves and for future generations to come.